You are now listening to Being Unboxed with Renee Ambush, formerly with the Flex Radio, and now with D.O.D Radio Network, Destiny Over Drama. Best self, best life, best radio. Say that. I get excited because you're here with me. You could be anywhere you wanted to be, but you chose to be here with me again at 3 o'clock here on Sunday. So I am loving it. And today we've got an amazing guest. Well, everybody who comes on my show is amazing. I just want to say that. But this one touches my heart more than they ever know. I don't think they ever really get a chance to understand what they do to me and for me. And so I might even have to like shed a tear on my own show today. So y'all gonna just bear with me, but we're gonna be out the box on a whole nother level today. So y'all know I always start with a story. And even for this one, I sometimes, and I don't do it consistently, and I should, but I'm also going to start this one with a prayer because I'm asking God right now in the name of Jesus that He touches every ear and heart that hears this show, and that people are convicted, convinced, compelled, uplifted, inspired, empowered, and just enlightened by how much they are loved. And that no matter what they go through or what they've been through, there is still destiny over drama, that you still have a great story at the end of this, and you keep on moving. Make sure you stay out of that box, because this being in that box is going to keep you bound and you're not going to be able to operate in purpose. So we're asking God to continue to cover this in every show. All right, y'all, come on now in Jesus' name. So because it's my podcast. I pray if I want to, say if I want to, do as I want to. You would pray too if it happened to you. Yeah, I just came up with my own song, and it's the allergy season, y'all. So I might not be at my best vocals, but I'm always at my best self, y'all. So here is the story before our guests. I don't even know where to start, y'all. So okay, with this one. There was years ago. My child was young, and I want to say maybe about I can't even remember, maybe about 4 or 5. And I had divorced his dad. His dad and I had divorced. My son was actually at a church where my husband, my ex-husband at the time, was attending, and my son was exhibiting behaviors that had me to take him to therapy and counseling, because I was like, his behaviors are a little out of the norm for his age bracket developmentally, and for his environment. He's just doing some things that shouldn't be. And it was a lot of heavy, extra age inappropriate sexual things. And I'm like, okay, so what is going on? I'm praying, I'm asking God, I'm like, what's happening? Why is this the case? What's going on? And I'm just like, I don't know, I don't know what's going on, God. And unbeknownst to me, I get a call. I get a call, and that call said, I need you to take your child out of this church. And I'm on the call. I'm on the call with them. And now, what's funny was that call, the person that called me, our sons had been friends when they were little. Oh, they used to spend a night together, and they was just like bestest friends when they was like, little kids and stuff. So I'm just like, oh my goodness, that's awesome stuff. So I trusted her word. I trusted her word. And she said, I need you to remove your child, excuse me, y'all, from this church. And I said, well, why so? And she said, there is a lot of sexual abuse and sexual immorality that's going on in this church. And quickly, it made sense to me. I then now understood what was going on with my child and what he was being exposed to and what was happening. But at the time, because, my ex-husband and I had joint custody legally, he would constantly take me to court when I didn't give him his weekends. But it was because I had found out that there was some sexual immorality and things that had taken place with my child. So I'm like, nope, not sending you. My child would be crying till he was like almost, that point. You know how kids cry to the point where they're vomiting? He was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. So I'm like, I'm not going to take him. I have to work something else out, put him in therapy, things of that nature. But his father would call me to court, and the courts would say, if you don't give him his weekends, we're going to hold you in contempt. And then, of course, incarceration. And so that would have not been the best thing to do, because it would have taken my child and put him in his hands, longer than needed to be, or in an unsafe environment. And so I'm listening to this woman, and she's like, take your child out of the church. And I fought this man back and forth. I didn't have money for representation. He was actually studying to be a lawyer. He had corporate lawyers, in his corner and everything. And actually I lost in court and had to give him more weekends. And I would just be devastated, because I didn't know what my child was going through, what was happening to him at the time. And then one day while I was at work, and people at work knew what was going on, because it was weighing heavy on me. And it would take a toll on my emotions, on my function at work wouldn't be on point or anything like that. And I was working for the government, so I had to be on point. And I just started screaming, because they were like, turn on the news, turn on the news. And I did, and what I heard was that pastor was arrested, and he had been found on all counts of sexual assault and sexual abuse to young men from here to, I think, Africa or something. And I just screamed and hollered, because that was God showing me and vindicating, like, you weren't crazy. You didn't just take him away. She wasn't lying. Like, it was real reason that you needed to get him out of that church. So herein lies and brings you up to date to my guest today. That was the mother of my guest today, who was a really dear and close friend to my firstborn, who you all know passed away. So that's why these are just a couple of reasons why this guest is just so dear to my heart, and this show is going to be amazing. All right, y'all. Listen, let me tell you something. When there is a move of God, the enemy is always mad. And that for
Always.
me, because I'm just crazy and out the box, that for me says push forward. Like, I'm just relentless. Let me tell you something. As a kid, I always pushed the envelope. I was just that kid. And so I didn't realize when I got older, that was because that's how I was made. I was made to push the envelope. I didn't know I was out the box. I just always knew that even though I tried to fit in, or I wanted to be in the crowd a little bit or whatever, I just never did. And God always pulled me to the top of the pack, where I was always a leader and not a follower. But I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't always want to be a leader, right? I didn't,
Mm,
because leaders get too much, right?
mm,
Even though I didn't even see myself as a leader, people saw me as a leader. So this is how it kind of comes out. Oh, she thinks she all that. Oh, she thinks she cute. Oh, she always got it. And I was just like, I was the most insecure, insignificant, low self-esteem individual. But I started getting to a point where it was just like, okay, well, wait a minute, if you think
right,
so, I
right,
think
right,
so
right.
too. How about that? So I started looking at it. But so y'all, I want to introduce my handsome guest. And because y'all know I'm out the box, and I will go on and on. And I told y'all I'm like the story, the buildings in New York. I got 8 million stories, baby. But
Wow,
we are going to
period.
introduce this young man right now. It's so funny because I don't care how old he gets, he's still about 8 or 9. He still looks 8 or 9 to me. He has never changed. He still looks the same, dimple and all. And every
That's
so
so
often, I
wonderful.
try to find the picture of him and my son. And when he spent the night, and I'm like, he got his funny hat. He showed up at my son's birthday parties and everything. And even though he's coming on as a full grown man, he's always like a second son to me. We don't have to talk every day. I don't have to see him all the while. But even in losing my son, his creativity, his smile, he's just always a means of nostalgia to bring my son back to me every time we speak. So I'm going to introduce to you all my adopted honorary second son, Mr. Rashad Corey. Yeah, I ain't got no laugh claps, Rashad. I ain't got none. I just want to.
Well, I'll give myself one. Thank you for having me.
Listen,
How are
I've been
you?
trying for forever, right?
I know schedules just have been so crazy lately. But I always believe in divine timing.
Absolutely.
And today, in this hour, it feels like it's divine timing. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as
Yeah.
always, because I know you also are a man of God, as always, you have to go before the throne and ask him, am I
Mm.
released to do your will?
Yes.
So I
Yes.
am so grateful to know that because you asked, because you laid before him, and because you got
Hmm.
an answer, I know the power that's on
Wow.
this show.
Amen. Amen.
Okay.
I'm in expectation, just as a vessel, just to see, like, how God's gonna move, you know, even just through me. Like, as a vessel, I'm very humble. But
Mhm.
like, I always, before, I do any interview, or I have a podcast, or anything like that. Like, I always, go before God, and I like, God, what are you going to do this time? Like, how are you going to use me this time? And I'm always in amazement. So, like, this feels so divine. Like,
Mhm.
your intro alone, like, just spoke so many volumes. And I just see the full circle.
Absolutely.
So, with that being said, it's like, okay, God, you about to get some glory. You're about to
Yeah.
encourage some people. You're about to empower some people. There's some
Mhm.
people that is on the brink of giving up, that
Ooh,
is going to get hope and get strength and be encouraged to hold on. So many things. People are going to be healed,
yes.
just by this podcast alone, just this interview alone. So I'm thankful to be here. Thank you for asking.
Absolutely. And let me tell you something. I'm also led when I'm asking guests to come on. One of the things is I provide a platform. I want to be that platform for people, right? Ever since I was younger, I was always for the underdog, always, right? And
Yeah.
I feel like when the underdog is given a chance, they glow and they grow immensely, right? If
Wow.
they're just given the opportunity and that platform to be who they were called to be. Now, for
Yeah.
me, I've struggled to get on platforms, and I'm gonna keep it 100. People were like, "You don't charge, for me to come on for what?" I'm not charging somebody to tell their story. I'm not charging
Mm,
somebody for them to be in a position that they can do what they were purposed to do. That is
yeah.
robbery. So when people are like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to bring, and I mean, honey, they didn't sent me some packages out. Okay. I want you, we love you. You are author, you are singer, we will come aboard. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. Like, when let's set up
Yeah.
something, let's meet with my people. And they're like, well, for an hour, the package is a baby. Am I going to pay you for
Oh,
through? That'll be a
right. Yeah. No, no, no. That's not how
that
it's
will be a
happening.
not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so when it comes down to this platform, I'm like, God, lead me to the people who not only are impactful and empowering for the masses, but bring me the people who are like, if somebody just gave me a chance, I'm that somebody
Mm.
to give you a chance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You understand what I'm
Yeah, yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. I
And then
love
with
it.
no strings attached. Come on, let's say something about that, baby. With
Period.
no
Yeah,
strings attached,
yes,
right? You don't,
yes.
not you personally, but you don't owe me nothing for coming on my platform. And I'm like, we tell
Hmm.
people, my producers, we tell people anyway, baby, if you want the whole taping of your show, you can have it. Do what you may. It can be your
Mm.
YouTube, your social media, because this was about you. This was about
Wow.
you sharing how you've been unboxed or how somebody else can be unboxed. You become a part of family and you don't treat family messed up, baby. That's not in my
Yes,
not in my
yes,
book,
yes,
right?
yes.
Now,
Amen.
now check
Amen.
it out. You choose. We can't choose what bloodline
Hmm.
we get born into, but we definitely can choose our family. And all family are
Absolutely.
those who have
Yes,
the same
yes.
father. Come on,
Our
somebody.
chosen family.
Come on, come on. And
Yes.
see, I ain't want to come
Hmm.
on here and put my preaching to, but I wasn't doing that today. I wasn't doing that
Well,
today.
there's a cloud hanging over, this whole interview already. So, like, if you feel a preach in your voice, preach it out. If you
Yeah.
feel like a little tongue, if you feel like speaking in tongues to edify yourself,
Hey, come
go
on.
ahead and do
Yes,
it.
Lord. All
Like,
right.
yeah.
Listen, I'll be sending it out to the airways. You know what I'm saying? I'll be like, listen, because I tell people which they understand, I have a relationship with God. I don't do church. I don't
Yeah.
do religion. Religion kills, the letter kills, but the spirit gives life. So I operate in the spirit of God, which is love. Okay. So,
Yes.
but
Yes.
we got you here though. So, Mr. Rashad, tell us who is Rashad Corey?
It's it's so funny because it's like, when people ask me that question, it's just like, I'm just like, oh, I'm an everyday person, like a young man that had a dream,
Mm.
and that had a dream from a very early age.
Mhm.
Um, born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, by a
Hey.
single
Uh-huh.
parent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay. See, it's already coming up. But born and raised in Baltimore by a single parent. Pretty much my mom, my grandmother, and my grandparents really supported my mother as a single parent.
Mm-hmm.
And I always say that I was a different child.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a different child that, I was creative and I was a visual learner. And in the 90s, like that wasn't something that was like very prominent in our
Mm-mm.
community.
Mm-mm.
Like, it was like you had to be educationally smart. You had to be book smart. You had to like, but like I was a kid that like art was my favorite,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, subject in school. And every subject I was doing art.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was supposed to have been in math, I was sketching and doodling. But anyway, I always had a dream to be a fashion designer.
Okay.
And so as a kid, like not making grades,
Mm-hmm.
good grades. My mom trying to get me into private schools, out of public schools, because I went through a lot of bullying and things like that. But not being able to pass the test, door slammed after door slam. I
Mm-hmm.
am like as a child, I was known to be disappointed and turned down. Like that was
Wow.
just a common thing for me. Like,
Mm.
like because my mother really did try to and better my education.
Mm-hmm.
But I just like academically, like, I just was never on the grade level that I should be. So for that caused a lot of insecurities, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, low self-esteem. It actually increased bullying, in school. And I have to tell this story because like, and I have to tell it like in its totality,
Mm-hmm.
because once we get to the meat and the potatoes, people
Mm-hmm.
will then really understand like, wow, where I literally came from. Did not read on my grading level,
Mm-hmm.
did not read or spell on my grading level up until I probably got to high school.
Mm.
But who Rashad Corey is a young man that literally came from not necessarily a struggling household, but
Mm-hmm.
mental and social struggles of like
Okay.
with fitting in, and that had a dream that
Mm-hmm.
was bigger than what his physical eyes could see, but his spiritual eyes could always see. And that dream stayed. I'm sorry.
No, 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 baby. No,
You
you
want to
fine,
say?
baby.
Okay.
Listen. No, because what I was going to say was he was bigger than what he was experiencing as well. And I just wanted to like
Yeah.
interject a little bit because you said a whole lot right there. You just talked to a whole
Mhm.
lot of families. You just talked to a
Mm.
whole community. You just talked to like a whole state of people
Yeah.
that have
Yeah.
children who, because they're not academically inclined, are honestly either thrown by the wayside or assumed
Hmm.
that won't be anything, or assumed
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
dysfunctional because they don't operate in the box. That's a part of this being unboxed kind of thing, right? And as you shared
Absolutely.
that, it was like it was so inspiring because I know that that listener with that child is like, I don't understand. Like I get them tutorers, I do this, and I want
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
interrupt
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that you have an amazing mother, so I know she did
Yes.
everything, right? So
Yes.
to that
Yes.
parent who is doing everything and that child is not hitting, and listen now, because you just went into something else, that's not hitting that academic mark. The good thing about it is it's because they're not supposed to. That's a box. That's a system that was set up to put them in what they wanted. And I need you to hone in as a parent, right? Or as an auntie or as a grandmom or as a
Hmm.
mentor or as a
Hmm.
school
Hmm.
hone
Hmm.
in on what that child's gifts is or gifts
Hmm.
are so that you can do what they're
Yes.
supposed to do. Because the
Yes.
same thing that you're telling me, even though my son was academic, he was very smart. He was on a 12th grade level in the fourth grade. But you know what they
Mm.
told me? Because he was always doodling and drumming on the desk and this, that, and another, that he had ADHD. They was like, he can't keep
Mm.
still. He just can't. But I said, you need to academically challenge him, test him. When they tested him in the fourth grade at Brims Lane Elementary, he was on a 12th grade level. And I said, so herein lies your problem. You're not academically, but then I saw that he loved music. So even when he got to, like
Mm.
you said, as an adult, and he was like, he was in college, he said, Ma, I don't want to go to college. I just want to do music. I said, then come out. He said, wait, come out.
Mm.
See, I'm a different breed of parent like your mama is. Listen, I'm not going
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
force
Yeah.
you into a box.
Yeah.
If this is
Yeah.
what you are called to do, then you're going to do what you are called to do. And I'm going to support you
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
So you were
Yes.
bigger than what they told you. You were bigger
Yes.
than what you even thought to yourself. So Rashad Corey,
Yes.
on this podcast, you're bigger.
Yes, amen, amen.
Okay.
And it's so great because now at 36 years old, I'm actually able to see how big I am, and I can see the story that God was writing for me when all the doors were shut.
Mhm.
When the kids were picking on me, when I felt as though that like I was insignificant, and I felt like no one cared about me, and like
Mhm.
like I was just overlooked.
Mhm.
I see what God was doing because like while I was in school and I was sketching and doodling and they were calling on me to like read something and I didn't even know where they were reading because I was just like off task, and I am ADD. I am
Mhm.
I
Well,
actually
let me add, so was he. But at the same
yeah.
token, because I'm a therapist, let me just go here. I know that those are the letters that they give you, but ADD, ADHD just says, I'm not in the box of society. I am a creative.
Absolutely.
I was born anointed
Absolutely.
and to empower and impact. So whatever letters you want to
Absolutely.
give me, but I'm
Yeah.
using them
Yeah.
because that's what I'm supposed to do.
Absolutely. And honestly, we have to fight the stigma as well as like, people don't want like anything that's like a mental challenge, like, depression, anxiety, post-stress,
PTSD.
PTSD, all of those things. Like when we hear those words, we just automatically think that like, oh, no, 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 I'm not going to claim that. But honestly, in all reality, if you even think ADHD and ADD, most creatives, I mean, most celebrities,
Absolutely.
most talented people, producers, directors, actors, actresses, songwriters, Grammy Award winning are
Absolutely.
ADD. They work
Absolutely.
on the left side of their brain, and that is how they create this off the wall, beautiful, amazing things
That we
because
adore,
they
that we
are not
love.
normal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So it's just like, some of the stigmas that we have to fight in our African American community, they shouldn't even be stigmas. They really should be celebrated
Absolutely.
because those are the individuals that are inventing, the robots and inventing, the planes and inventing like, different, odd gadgets and things like that.
But
Those are
that's
the
why we got
people
out the
that's up.
box. That's why we're being unboxed,
Absolutely.
because we need to
Absolutely.
get people out of the, like you said, out of the stigmas, out of the system, and individualize
Yes.
their own beauty, their own power, their own big
Yeah.
enough, right? So
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
somebody at their home, they don't have this, they don't have nobody telling them that. So they just happen
Yeah.
across this podcast, or somebody heard it and sent it to their parent, or so that they can say, let's such and such listen to this, because let them know that
Yeah.
somebody understands them. That's exactly what this is about. And it's funny because I was going to ask you, what things did you have to overcome to become Rashad? But since you didn't answer all that, then so I was going to go
Yeah.
here. It transitions to here. We stood on a platform together, and I told you it's just going to be it's going to be tears. And I was talking about my book. I was, talking about silent screams, the voices of children that you don't hear, right? And so I'm talking about, me overcoming the incest and overcoming the molestation and things of that nature. And all I saw again, like I said, was my son's friend standing on this platform.
Mm.
And then you opened your mouth.
Mm.
And I was like, I want your t-shirt. I wanted your t-shirt because that was my testimony. I survived.
Yeah, wow,
So
wow,
I'm like,
wow. Yeah.
I wanted the t-shirt. I wasn't
Yeah.
ready for the testimony.
Amen.
Come on. Now I'm saying that, and that, even though that sounds real cute, I'm saying that because a lot of times we want to look like something. We want to be like something, but we don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that something was to get there. So while
Yeah.
the apparel was fly,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I can rock that.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was
yeah.
the message that I really.
Wow.
So
Wow,
I
wow,
need
wow.
you to share with the people, because they wasn't on the platform. I need you to share with the people, what is I Survive?
Wow. So I founded I Survived back in 2016 because at that point in my life, I needed to take the muzzle off of my mouth. I needed to take that zipper off of my
Say
mouth.
that.
The shame and the guilt of being sexually molested and manipulated by a pastor
Mhm.
had literally gripped me to the degree that it caused you know, the depression to like become so heavy that, you know, I didn't even recognize my own self,
Mm.
where there was suicide attempts and suicide thoughts. And, you know, even like, you know, addiction, you know, at a very early age,
Mhm.
post being molested. But at that point, God had told me that if you take one step
Mm.
in your healing process,
Mm.
I'll take two steps.
Mm.
And if you just start to open up your mouth and
Mm.
share your story in a platform where you can, because here's the thing, the crazy thing about it was,
Mhm. Mhm.
the way I Survived was even came about was I was
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
New York and I was working for a client and I was styling this client, but I was in the hotel room and I had this great idea because I was so inspired by being in New York to do a clothing line. And I just wanted to do a t-shirt line, like, you know, just fly, you know, cute little fly words. And God said, no, it is the time for you to take your message
Mm.
and bring it to apparel. And with that, like I created the I Survived t-shirt. And then God showed me like this vision of this t-shirt of a second option or a second piece in that line where there was a female that literally had a zipper it was like it was
Mm.
being unzipped.
Mhm.
And it says survive the silence.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was like literally like God gave it to me. Like, I mean, I literally saw the image. So from there, I really went into production, started, you know, got an illustrator, got a, you know, a screen printer. I literally started like jotting down all of my notes as far as like what it was that I wanted to share.
Mhm.
And it was April 2016. It was Sexual Assault
Wow.
Awareness Month.
Yep.
I launched the I Survived movement in Baltimore, Maryland on Fox 45 News,
Yes.
where I was able to have models that were showcasing the clothes. And it started out so fabulous. Like, you know, they were styled, I styled them, they had jewelry with the t shirts. Flared those skirts and like, you know, heels, like we were dressed it up, like glammed it
Mhm.
all up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the news anchor asked me, because they didn't prep me,
Okay.
they asked me, what is the mission behind I Survived?
Ooh.
And at that point, God had instantly allowed me to remember that night in the hotel when he said, survive the silence, take the
Mhm.
zipper off. And mind you, this is morning television. So I'm
Right.
like, God, do you want me to go into depth? Or do you want me to just talk about like, oh, I survived sexual abuse? No, God said, tell it all.
Tell it
So
all.
on Fox 45, probably like 7 o'clock in the morning, here I am in 2016 talking about surviving sexual abuse from a pastor from the ages of 12 to 16. And mind you, this was the same station that actually
Broke
covered
your
the
story?
story,
Stop.
broke the story, broke the
I did not
story.
know that.
Yes, but see, I was a minor at that time, so my name wasn't mentioned. They didn't. There was no way of them knowing that I was one of the five victims at that church in Baltimore County, in 2005, that you know was molested by that apostle. So it was a full circle moment because I remember how watching Fox 45, watching
Wow.
WJZ after it hit the news, and feeling so stuck because I had given my statements to the police officers, and then the police officers then gave it over. For some reason, how the news and the
Because I was going to say,
newspapers,
how in the world did you get the Fox 45? Like, how did even, you know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, I'm sorry. How, they gave your information from that statement with the pastor to the news. But I want you to finish. But look
from
at, like you said, when you followed God's directions of just opening your mouth. Now I have a shirt because you know I
yeah,
do
yeah,
t-shirts too, and I've got heal out
yeah.
loud. And I'm like,
Oh,
when
I
you
like that.
were obedient and opened your mouth,
Yeah,
he said, I'm gonna take you everywhere you need to be, every platform. And how
yeah,
is it that he, like you said, he took you right back to where the story unfolded for what we talked about early, for you to give your version. So it doesn't matter what was written, even if not,
yeah,
not
yeah,
saying
yeah,
it was
yeah,
false,
yeah, yeah,
but your name
yeah.
wasn't there. God said, no, 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 no. Listen, it's you who gonna give me the glory. That black and them black
Yes,
and white letters about
yes,
the child or the
yes,
one of the five.
yes, yes.
He said Rashad. because he
Wow.
speaks for me, is going to give
Hmm.
that message so that the same people who
In
broke
due
the
season.
story got in due season is going to be able to tell you this is y'all broke that story, but I am the exclusive. The exclusive.
Yes.
Why? Because you're bigger.
Coming back. Yes. Coming back as a survivor, though.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and the reality was when I started to talk about it, once I started to go on these platforms, and thankfully, I've been on every, news platform in the DMV area sharing
Proud
this
of you.
story. Every time I ripped the zipper off, every time there was another dose of healing. So that's why it's so important to tell your story.
It
It's
is.
so important to share with other people because, yes, you're helping other people, but that is tied to your own healing as well. So I
Absolutely.
realized that obedience, when God said, you take one step, open your mouth, I'll take two steps. You
Mm-hmm.
take another step, I'll take three. You take
Mm-hmm.
another. And because of your consistent
Oh, come
obedience,
on, consistent.
I will increase the favor on your
Mhm.
life, and I will increase the healing for you
Yes.
because you're obeying me, you're helping my little ones, but I'm standing in the need because every time I share it, it hurts me. But at the end of the day, it's God peeling back the layers. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes pulling back the layers is hard. It's
Yes.
painful. It's, because you're
Yes.
getting to the seed of the root of what it was. And here's the thing, God, then, when you get to the root of it, he then can clean you off and
Yes.
heal you
And
and
start
send you back out to
healing.
be even more
Listen,
powerful.
absolutely. And you know what? So when I do my impartation strategy, my therapy sessions with my clients and my impartation strategies, I say that you have to be real to heal. And then no, you have to be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
real to deal, then heal. And what happens is, like you
Mhm.
said, we pull back those things. And one of the things that I do with the clients is we talk about those situations, and they're painful, but you get to talk about them in an environment that there's, of course, no judgment. And then you're going to get skills and strategies to help you from that as well. So now you can go ahead and peel it back, look at it and go, wow, it was impactful. It impacted my life. It took me to places, but it did not kill me.
Mhm.
Right. Which brings
But
me
did not kill
the
me.
I survived, right? And
Yeah.
even sharing that. So because it's funny that you said, not funny, but the fact that you were in the hotel room doing a line,
Mhm.
right? A design line, all the while healing, all the while operating in purpose, all the while, as long as you was obedient and consistent, God showed favor on your life. So that kind of is so funny. It's
Mhm.
transitioned right into we're gonna talk about fashion because I survived,
Yeah.
right? The very
Yeah.
thing that happened that did not take you out really
Yeah.
was a part of propelling you and catapulting you into your purpose, right? And
Wow.
a little later
Wow.
on, because we're gonna talk about fashion, you from Baltimore. And like I said, you my honorary my other child. So we're gonna name
Yeah.
drop for what you did because I'm so proud of you because that's what it's all about. It's not because I want to shine because I did this, that, and another. The shine is I did it despite what happened. Because what did we say in the beginning of this? Because I'm bigger. I was bigger than all.
Yes.
And so because
Yes.
I was obedient, my big became where everybody saw my big. And we said this
Yeah.
before. People don't know what you've been through to get to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But when you are like you, when you stay humble, when you stay before God, when you do it and you know that you helping other people and not because
Mm-hmm.
you want to get the glory, he going to keep on having you to shine. So tell me, is that how you got into fashion? Was it by the t-shirt? Was the beginning?
Oh.
I mean, we know that you was little doing stuff, but how did you get
Oh
into
no. Oh
Okay.
no, no,
Okay.
no, 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 no. Yeah, we gotta rewind it back.
Rewind.
So I'm gonna start with this because I feel led
Okay.
because if there's anybody that does not understand or really doesn't really grasp the whole concept of vision and manifestation, hopefully this portion of the story will help with vision and manifestation and then putting prophecy right in the middle.
Okay.
So Okay. So remember, like, when I said that I was a child, I was doodling, sketching, off task in school. My mom tried to get me into a program, Carver. It
Mhm,
had a it was like a costume production, magnet program. I had to do a whole portfolio to get into it. I was probably like 13 at the time.
mhm.
Ended up being denied,
Okay.
and that broke my heart.
Mhm,
Remembering this is the child that has literally, like, never could get into the schools, never gotten any awards in school, never got any, like, accolades, and always just doors just shut in my face. That literally caused me to put down the dream
mhm,
of
mhm.
being a
Come
designer
on,
at the age of
absolutely,
13.
absolutely.
And so I'm gonna fast forward to, I was about 18 years old, and I was doing a 21-day fast with my former church, Empowerment Temple.
Mhm, mhm,
And when we were doing this fast, I remember we would come to church every day, like in those 21 days, and we would cry out to God, we would pray, and Pastor Bryant, he would like lead us in prayer. This
mhm.
specific time, Pastor Bryant called me out and he
Mm,
prophesied this word to me. It's a word that I'm literally seeing manifesting right before my eyes. He
mhm,
said, "You need to get back to your first love, which is
mm.
fashion. I see you going as far as LA and your name being in credits and your
Come on,
name being
come
in
on.
lights." Mind you, this man didn't know nothing about nothing when it came to my dreams and aspirations and what my first love was, and me aborting it because
Mhm,
of a letdown or rejection or not being able to express it, when I
mhm,
really thought this opportunity was going to come. So this was my first in life. I feel like my first act of obedience. It was like, okay, God, if this is what you're saying, I'm gonna go after it.
mhm,
So I registered for school. Like, I was looking at schools. I found a school that I was able to, like, get into a fashion design program.
mhm.
Mind you, I get into this fashion design program. I tell my mom, I'm like, hey, I want to apply to this school. She wasn't really down for me, like, leaving Baltimore to go to
Mhm.
school.
You have
But
one and
like, there
only, of course.
I know, I know. But the reality was, like, there was very limited fashion design programs in Baltimore.
Mhm, mhm.
And I needed to, like, go to a city that had like some type of fashion industry going on. And Philly was really so I went to school in Philly, and Philly
Okay,
was like a really good blend between Baltimore and New York. It was
okay.
close to New York, it was very inspired. During that time, like 2008, it had a very up and coming like fashion district in industry in
Mhm,
Philadelphia.
mhm.
So I went to school. I got, my first time, like, I actually got accepted into something,
Wow,
was I got
wow.
accepted into the fashion design program. So I
Because it
was
was
like, okay,
purpose.
that, and there was a prophetic word on the line. There was a prophetic word on the line. So easily got into it, like, got that word in July. By January, I started school. And when I started school, I literally went from just a student to the president of the fashion organization to then doing the fashion shows for the
Come on.
school to okay, and then mind you, this is in a 3-year period, then to interning with the BET 106 in Park, interning with Oscar de la Renta,
Okay.
um, ended up graduating with 2 degrees in fashion,
Wow.
a fashion design degree, and a fashion marketing degree, with an outstanding achievement award for my entire class.
Okay, wait a minute. Say that. Did y'all hear that? Listen, if
Yeah.
you just tuned in, you missed the first part. Rewind and catch it all. Okay.
Yes, for
Okay.
sure. You want to do that. No,
Mhm.
because and you're so right when you said that. I know that was, said in a very humorous way, but like, definitely, because this is, you'll literally see the story that God was writing all along. Like,
Hmm.
definitely when we get to the end. But like, so from that, like, doors were just opening, opportunities after opportunities. And it was like it was like a moment where, like, I was doing these fashion shows at the school. There was like this top event planner that heard about our fashion shows and how high end they were and how
Hmm.
chic they were for college. It wasn't, it wasn't, I'm sorry to say, it wasn't like a very urban show. It
Well,
wasn't
I mean,
like
and baby, I just want to say this, and I do want to interject. I apologize. Let me tell you something because I love where I came from. Okay, I love
yeah,
my
yeah,
city,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people don't
love it.
give it credit enough. We are the most creative, talented people that you will
Yes, we
ever
are.
find. Okay, so
Yes, we
everywhere
are.
we step into, we gonna bring different. We gonna bring it all. We gonna
Yes,
bring
yes, 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 yes,
everywhere we
yes,
step.
yes.
It's going to be, and
Absolutely.
they're gonna have to ask you, "Oh, where you from?" Like you said, you like New York, no, baby, Baltimore. We
Baltimore. They'll
carry
be like,
that
oh,
thing.
they always say this though. Oh, you don't give me Baltimore.
I get it all the
I'm like,
time.
what? Well, I'm like, what is give you Baltimore though?
I get it all
Like,
the
it,
time. I said, "Do I have to
it's just
go to
like,
New Avenue?" And they like,
right.
yeah,
Well, I tell them, I said, this is me and this is Baltimore.
it is.
Excellence,
That's
excellence.
that is
Like,
it.
there's different, you can have urban, you can still have urban and successful. You can still have, like,
That's it.
polished and chic and professional. You can have all these different, genres of who you are and still be very true to who you are and where you came
Absolutely.
from.
Especially when
People
you operate in purpose.
stop boxing people in.
Yeah,
That's the
I don't do
problem.
box. That's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about. So go ahead,
right.
baby. So you
So,
brought it to them because they wasn't ready. They wasn't ready.
no, they weren't. So this big time event planner by the name of Karan Nicole, she came to our fashion show,
Mhm,
and she loved everything that she saw. And like, she came up to me, gave me her business cards, like, reach out to me on Monday. Mind you, I was feeling like, like a little starving artist, like, who is this woman? She was
mhm,
dressed real nice, like, she told me that she wanted to book me, da 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 da. So she was having like this big fashion event. It was called a White Tie Ball,
mhm.
in the city of Atlanta. I mean, sorry, the city of Philadelphia. And I mean, all the who's who was there. The governor, the mayor, everybody was in gowns and
I love it.
tuxedos, and everybody had to wear white. She wanted a couture fashion show.
All right.
And yeah, yeah, yeah. So like, me and my partner at the time, business partner at the time, we had produced this fashion show. All of my college associates, we came together and we produced this beautiful fashion show. And that is honestly how my career started. It started from a
Wow.
college student that just, from the bottom up. Like, I used to do bi-weekly groups with the fashion organization, and we would call it Mind, the future leaders in fashion.
I know that's right.
And we would have affirmations about our career and what we
Mm,
saw our career to be, and we would talk about forecasting and trends in fashion. And we would go to New York Fashion Week, and we would intern as dressers
mm,
behind the scenes and things of that sort. And that really just really shaped my career to what it is now. And once I graduated, I moved back to Baltimore.
mhm,
And it it felt like it was a step back for me because there
mhm.
was limited opportunity,
Absolutely.
in Baltimore. But thankfully, Philly was close, and I would get calls to go back to Philly, for little odd projects, and I would go for events and things like that. But it just was not picking up. So I literally went into like the freelance world, and I went to actually retail doing like visual merchandising right outside of school.
Mhm.
And this is where I really started to question God,
Okay, come on with it.
because it was like right after the prophecy, I went forth. I went to college. I got my degree. I did my interns. Doors were opening. Working at Oscar de la Renta, working with 106 in Park. It was just like all the doors were opening, and then I had to go back to my mother's basement. And I was
Mm,
like, God, I'm still standing on your word. Like, where are you? Like, I thought the
mm,
doors were going to be open. I went to school. I got my degrees. Like, where are the doors? Where are the doors? The door. And every time, I mean, I would contact people in New York, and I would go to New York, and I would do a test shoot.
the
And then
process.
Vogue, and yes, and then Vogue would say, no, we don't want that publication. And then, doors would be slammed here. And, I would get so close. It was like always like I would get so close to the door, and there would be something that the deal wouldn't go through.
But
Or
let me
there would
go
be
here though. You
opportunity.
were strengthened as a child when all those doors was closed and all those no's was, and you didn't
Absolutely.
even realize you had what it took for a closed door. You
Yeah.
understand? Because you were already
Yes.
being prepped. Mm-hmm.
Yes, to continue the journey. Because
Mm-hmm.
so many of us, so many of, if 10 people say no to you,
Mm-hmm.
you'll then go the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
But if God gave you a word, you can literally take it to the bank and cash
Yep.
it.
Yep.
And here's the thing, you have to remind God back the word that he gave you. And it
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to, in your word, and here's the thing, your word doesn't have to always come from a prophet. The
Mm-mm.
word could just be a vision that
Yep.
God gave you. It could be an idea that God gave you.
And you know when it's that because it moves you, right? You can't even explain why
Mm.
it's touching you in such a deep way, but you just know
Yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
something
for
that
sure.
if you're not operating in it, it just you don't feel like you have life. So that in itself
Yeah,
is a gesture to let people know how you know when it's something that it's what you're supposed to do and God
yeah,
is seeing it. Because that person, this
yeah,
being a
yeah,
box. So people listen to me, they ain't going to church, right? They might even not even
yeah,
get
yeah.
the church thing. So I not try, but
Mhm.
I tell them how to be able to understand the relationship with God, right?
Yeah,
To understand how he's
yes.
speaking to you, how he's calling you, how he's drawing you near. It may never
Mm,
be in the
mhm,
building,
mhm.
but when you, like you said, when you see that billboard, if you see that commercial, be like, dang, that's what I want to do. If we talking about fashion, if you go to a fashion show and you like, okay, that outfit is everything, and you're like, I gotta do that. There you go. There is your unction. There is your word. There is what God is telling you to
Mm.
do. So you don't have to worry about if you didn't go to church, if the pastor didn't say it, if you didn't get a prophecy, if you
Yeah,
didn't get
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah,
televangelist or whatever the case may
yeah,
be.
yeah.
You're hearing it from being unboxed. That's what you're supposed to do.
Wow.
This is your word. This is your notation. This is letting you know right now that that thing, whatever that thing is that you can't shake, that is what you're supposed to be doing. Okay. All right. That
Absolutely.
makes some guess.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, the hurdles are gonna come and it takes time. It
Mhm.
took me, I promise you, and we'll get to where I am now and where, but it took so long where it was a degree where it was like my mom, my grandparents, they were like, you need to just go get yourself a government job.
Come
You
on,
need to just go
Joe.
ahead and get yourself a regular, job, a 9 to 5, where it has good benefits and you can support yourself and da 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 da. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I was a starving, struggling artist my
Mhm.
entire all of my 20s,
Mhm.
all of my 20s, until it was something that clicked right before 30.
Mhm.
It was like I survived was I surviving.
Mhm. Mhm.
People were like, God was using me in such a unique way with I survived. I'm gonna
Mhm.
just stick there real quick. Like where I survived, and then I had this gift, it's like I survived is my mantle, my spiritual gift, my assignment that God has given me. But then I also have natural gifts, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to figure out like how to balance them both out, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
there was something that clicked for me. Like once God was using me so much when I survived. Like I mean, I was getting booked on ABC Prime, NBC. My story was out there. Everyone,
Mhm.
people started calling me Mr. I Survived. And
Mm.
with that being said, so many people were so enriched and empowered and inspired by the message of I Survived. And people would start to wear their t-shirts and they would take selfies and they would share their stories of what they survived. And everybody didn't survive sexual abuse. Some people
Everybody's right.
survived homelessness. Some people survived mental abuse, addiction,
Mhm. Homelessness,
abuse, home,
passing of children and parents and family
absolute
members.
grief.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was like anything that you had survived, any life adversity or traumas that you had survived or you were surviving, that was a network that
Mhm.
people were able to find community and find their voice in. And with that being said, this is when the season where God began to lift my esteem
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
how I looked at myself, how
Mhm.
I saw myself. And he would show me that I was fearfully and wonderfully made and that
Mhm.
God really uses me. Like when people would come back to me and say, well, when you did that homeless rally and you got on, you were out there on that corner and God was using you, you
And mind
spoke
you,
this
like
to
you
me. You
said, you
spoke,
was in your 20s.
I was in my
So
20s. Yeah, I was
right.
in my
So
20s.
I just want to stop right there for a second because you don't have to be a certain age. You just have to be willing. Somebody
You
listen.
have to be willing.
It's got to be
And
willing.
while God was using me to help and I say this very humbly because God is the healer, but God was using me as the vessel,
Mm-hmm.
to speak and to pray and to even speak words of prophecy,
Mm-hmm.
to people that were in very, very hurting spaces,
Mm-hmm.
very low spaces. And while he was healing them and he was using me, he was doing a dual situation. So
Mm-hmm.
while God was healing me with I Survived, and I was
Mm.
feeding the homeless with my food stamps, and I
Mm.
was
Come on, come on. Mm.
and I was out there asking people for donations just so that we could have clothes, for our clothing drives, and we could have money to pay for, our praise and worship leaders and our the band and the sound, that
Mm-hmm.
because we would have like these big, extravagant events for the homeless community.
Mm-hmm.
What God was doing was he was building my morale. He was pulling me up and showing me that you have a place in this world. You have a place
Yes.
in this kingdom. So
Yes.
something clicked with me around 29, right before I turned 30. And I said, if I'm able to manifest all of this over here, I have this styling dream or this design dream to make it to the top. Not even just a dream.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
going back now. At this point, it's over 10 years, and the manifestation has not been completed of the
Mm-hmm.
prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to God and told God back His word. I gave God back His word, and
Mm-hmm.
I told God, I said, God, I've been waiting for it, and God said, I've been waiting on you.
Come on, somebody. Say that. That's a say that moment. Mm-hmm.
God said, I've been waiting on you to open up your mouth and manifest what
Mm.
it is that I have for you and what it is that I prophesied for you. The vision is clear, but the resources didn't feel like it was. But God said, you're not reaching forth your hand. So
And
for
I'm
my
gonna tell you,
30th
let me just
birthday,
look, let me go here with you with that one too, right? Because he was waiting for you to speak it. But this is what I know to be true for myself and others. He was waiting for you to believe it.
yes, to believe it and to manifest it and to
Mm-hmm.
operate in a spirit of boldness. I
Mm-hmm.
remember for my 30th birthday, I went to Atlanta to celebrate my birthday. All of my friends backed out. I ended up going alone
Mm.
on $250 a week of unemployment.
Mm.
And I saved up a little bit of money, paid for my own hotel, because mind you, we was all supposed to split this hotel. But
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was a divine appointment. It wasn't for me to go turn up, da 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 da. I wanted to move to Atlanta. And my
Mm-hmm.
dream was I wanted to work for Tyler Perry Studios. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to work in the costume department. So when I got there, God said, use your voice and ask me for this land. And
Mm.
I remember like a crazy person, my 30th birthday, walking around downtown, like, God, give me this land, create opportunities for me here.
Mm-hmm.
God, like I want to open up doors for me here. Like I want to move to Atlanta and I want to be great. I want to da 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 da. Right at the moment that I had sent that prayer out and I'm walking and affirming, one of my college friends, the same college friend that I was producing those fashion shows with, and
Mm-hmm.
we were styling. We was a styling duo, and we were, in the fashion organization. She had already gone in to the film and TV world,
Mm-hmm.
and she was already costume and design, and she was celebrating her birthday as well, and
Wow.
she happened to invite me over. She was living in Atlanta. Happened to invite me over to her house.
Mm-hmm.
When she invited me over to her house, she then for a celebration. There
Mm-hmm.
was nothing but I mean, Diddy's son was there. Tasha Smith ended up being there. All these TV and film crew members, like they were working in costumes, were there. And I was hearing them, and I was all this, talk about work and working on sets and stuff like that. And one thing, that thing boosted my faith like from maybe like
Yes.
a 50 to 100. And
Mm-hmm.
let me tell you what it was. They was like, "Oh, what do you do? Where are you from? Where do you live?" I said, "Oh, I'll be living in Atlanta within the next 6 months." "Oh, where are you gonna be living?" "I don't know yet." "What are you working on?" "I don't know, but I'm gonna be working in your industry." I was so bold to
Come on.
decree and to
Come
just
on. Come
declare
on.
what I knew what God was going to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
And here's
Mm-hmm.
the thing: once I did that, I remember pulled my friend off to the side and I said, I'm ready. I want to get into the industry. I want to, I want to design. She's like, well, it's going to take a while for you to design. You're going to have to start at the bottom. You're going to have to be a PA first. And you're going to have to work your way up. And she was like, if anything comes up, I'll let you know. I'll give you a call. But I remember 2 months later, 2 months later, it was the beginning of the month. This was in January of 2019 at this point. At the beginning of the year, all the churches go into consecration. My church at the tab at Greater Bethlehem Temple in Baltimore, we was in our 7-day fast in consecration. And I remember I was on my knees at the altar. And I was like, God, this is the year you're going to do it. This is the year that I'm going far. I'm going up. I'm going to Atlanta. I'm going to go. Like, I'm going for it. And I remember, like, God had me tarrying on that altar. Like, service was over. Everybody was pretty much out. People were talking and
Look like Hannah there
lollygagging,
talking about
fellowshipping.
asking God for Samuel. She was at there acting up, acting a fool. Today was like, you don't be coming in here drunk. And she like, no, you just don't understand. So you was you was
Yeah,
severing.
I was staring at that altar. And when I tell you, when I got up, I'm driving home from Randallstown to Towson. Once I hit Towson, I said, bling, bling. There was a bling, bling. That was a
Mhm.
text message that
Okay,
came
okay.
through. Looked at the text message. Are you available to start
Mm.
in Atlanta on a CW show? I mean, within 30 minutes from me being on the altar, this is God fulfilling his word. Like,
Mhm.
because here's the thing, we just be sitting around thinking, like, it's just going to come. But there's an
Mhm.
action behind your faith.
Say
There's a
that.
spiritual action, and then there's a natural action behind
Mhm.
your faith. You
Mhm.
got to speak things as if they already are.
Come
You
on.
have to speak God's word back to you.
Yes.
And then you have to work the rooms, get
Come on.
into the rooms,
Come
work
on.
the rooms, tell people what you want, tell people
Word
what it
committed.
is that you're
Word
going
committed.
for. Go ahead, right? Sell yourself.
Mhm.
And that's what it was.
And then that
And
went back to him telling you, open your mouth when he took the zipper off. So it wasn't just the,
take the
you opened
zipper.
your mouth and you spoke. And said the
Open
word
your
also
mouth
tells
and
us,
I spoke.
take no thought about what you're going to say. Just open your mouth. I got you. Sometimes we speak
I
something and
got
go, I
you.
didn't even know I was going to say that. And I'm just tripping because when I worked in the government, I used to work for the good government. And the first day I went in there, they asked us to say our name and give something about us and just say something. And I stood up and I was like, hi, my name is Renee and I won't be retiring from here. And I sat down and I was like,
Ooh,
the ink wasn't even dry on my contract. And I'm telling them I ain't gonna be here, right? And I'm like, I sat
right.
down, like, why did I say that? And then, like, about 10 years later, I handed in my resignation. Turn you back around, baby. And 10 years later, I handed in my resignation. And the thing about it is, because I'm gonna let you finish the story. I handed in that resignation and I said, God, why? First and foremost, they had just sent me to Vegas to represent them. I had gotten all sorts of
Wow.
awards, right? I was a grade. Now we talking about 2000, that was 20, almost 20 something years ago. So
Mm-hmm.
I was a grade 13 back then.
Mm.
Okay. But just hear me out on this here for a second. And I'm like, so God, you told me to do this. And they like, Renee, I don't get it. You doing this, And I said, and God, not only that, I'm ministering to people here. People are getting healed and delivered and saved. And he said, listen, if you stay a day longer than what I told you to say, you become a stench in my nostrils. I handed in my 2 weeks
Wow.
and I left.
Wow. Wow.
But
Wow.
hear what I
Wow.
hear this, because it's like you said, we talking about being unboxing our story. I left the
Mm-hmm.
good government job, and people was like, Renee, we watched you because we was like, that was crazy. Why in the world would she do that? What's she gonna do? Where's she gonna go? What's gonna happen? And the thing
Yeah.
about it is, I didn't know that either, right? So I got there, and my daughter was in the industry, so I'm going back and forth to New York, supporting her, making sure she gets her auditions, making sure she's on set,
Mm-hmm.
da 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 da. But my
Mm-hmm.
money running out. Right? Because I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute,
Yeah.
God, you told me to take this step, but
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
running out, right?
Yeah.
So it ran out to the point where or started running so low that I sat on the other side of a social service uh person, getting my stamps and my SNAP and
For
my check.
sure.
And I'm
For
going, well,
sure.
God, I'm crying. Because first and foremost, I went to school for social work and therapy. So what you doing is a little $10 job or whatever that I could do. I didn't manage people like you, but you making me feel like dirt. And I'm telling God, well, wait a minute. I just left a grade 13 in the government to come and sit at a welfare desk to get, but all the while, and we're gonna get because it's a move on, all the while people were watching me. Now, they didn't know that part of my story, right? But they're
Mm.
watching me. And some people even told the truth and said, Renee, we were watching you to fail because we couldn't understand why you had left the government in the place that you were and couldn't tell us where you were going or what you were going to do. But those same people got so inspired as they saw what God has showed in my testimony that they too left the government and started their own job or went independent or did what God purposed
Mhm.
them to do.
Mhm, mhm,
And they're
mhm,
so
mhm,
grateful
mhm.
to do it. And in this
Mhm.
climate, and I'm gonna let you get back because I want to move on to begin to name drop. But in this climate, um, what is happening with the Social Security Administration now? You got whole departments being terminated. So I'm
Yep.
just like God, and I pray for all my friends that are still there or who've lost their jobs and things of that nature. And I also have to rejoice because I said almost 20 years ago, you took me out that environment. And even though I struggled and I didn't understand what the plan was, you got me to the point where I'm consistently operating for the kingdom. And now I
Wow.
don't do without. You understand what I'm saying? And I've
Wow.
learned to
Yeah.
live both abased and abound. I know what it is to have checks on my dresser that I ain't even need the cash because it was money flowing in. And then I've also learned
Period.
how it is to be able to live in the domestic homeless shelter and the House of
Mm.
Roof in Baltimore.
Wow.
You understand what I'm
Wow.
saying? So
Wow.
all of the part to get to the point of being in purpose. So we gonna name drop because you talked about coming to Atlanta and that prophecy that put out there. And I want you to take time, tell every daggone thing you did, everything you did, everything that come to mind. Because not only have you done it, but again, we started off by saying, "You big boy, you big boy." So this is only a beginning, but because you're from Baltimore, because you've overcome, because you've survived, because you walked in your purpose, because the word has come to fruition, and you manifested what it was supposed to be. Tell the people, not only just Atlanta, but add Atlanta. Tell them what Mr. Big Rashad Corey has done.
So, like, it literally started 6 years ago. 6 years ago, literally, like to this date almost. It was March the 7th when I started my career in
Wow.
TV and film. And when I moved to Atlanta, and opportunities, the one opportunity then literally blossomed into multiple opportunities.
Mhm.
And so my first show I worked on, and this is like, please understand, this was as a PA, as a costume production assistant, which I was very humbled and graced to do. Like, this is where I was really able to learn how the department in costumes work. And I was also able to learn how, like, the whole industry is like set up on set and off set, prep, rap, all of that.
Mhm.
So from Stargirl, which was a CW, it was a CW show. I got a call from Tyler Perry Studios.
Did y'all hear that? Did
And
y'all
like
hear
yeah, I got a call from Tyler Perry Studios probably like 4 months into
that?
my
Mm,
career in the TV and film industry.
mm.
And here, okay, God, you
Come
told me to
on,
say
come
it.
on.
Okay, you saying being transparent. And but see, here's the thing. That was a part of the deal that I made with God because I told him that I wanted Tyler Perry Studios. So
Mhm,
when they called, I was like, God, you are really connecting the dots.
mhm.
But here's the thing, that good old CW show was paying me pretty nice.
You see what I'm
And
saying?
okay,
Woo!
for a PA, it was paying me decent. Like, where I was like getting mileage, I was able, like, because I was the runner. Like,
Mhm, mhm.
I was getting lunch, I was getting coffee, I was doing returns, I was sourcing fabrics for the designer, all these things. But everywhere I went, I was able to enlarge my
Come
territory
on,
there.
come on.
But, because I asked God for Tyler Perry and he gave me Tyler Perry Studios. I went over there as a PA and I worked Sister season one. And I ended up taking a pay cut.
Mhm, mhm,
And with that pay cut, I was able to even understand like the dip before the high,
mhm,
if you get
mhm,
what I mean. It
mhm.
was like, it's not always about money, but it's
Come
about
on.
opportunity.
Say that one more time, please. Please say
It's
that.
always not about money, it's about opportunity.
Mhm,
And the fulfilling part about working at Tyler Perry Studios was just working with like black creatives, you know, and on black shows telling our black stories.
Mhm.
And, so working as a PA for Sister Season 1 and then coming back working as a set costumer for Sister Season 3
Mm.
and being able to work at TPS, that kind of like, was the foundation of my career where I really learned how to work fast. Anybody
Mhm.
knows anything about Tyler Perry Studios, like it's been said, like they move quick. Like,
Okay.
it's very, very quick. I mean, we were going through like 100 pages of a script per day.
Woo.
Yeah, yeah. Whoa. If you ever know,
Yeah.
typically most shows we do 5 to 6, where Mr. Perry, he's moving really, really quick. And you really just gotta stay on your A game. You gotta think ahead. And
Mhm.
like, you have to, plan out your day.
Mhm.
And you have to understand that when things come around, you gotta know how to pivot. That's
Mhm.
where I was really able to learn how to pivot. And that was the foundation that then led me to working on like the Respect movie, which was Aretha Franklin's biopic.
Mhm.
That also led me to shopping on like a HBO series called The Staircase. That also led me to working on la 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 la
Let's go
la.
here. Sister, you've been
Yeah, I was
on
trying to get some
my
other stuff.
mind.
I was trying to get some other stuff before I talked about The
Sister.
Color Purple, but
He was
that's what
good.
y'all really
Copy the down
love.
for
Like that's what excites
color
everybody. It excites me too though because that was a God-centered
Yeah.
divine connection, and that was something else that I manifested. um it was January 2022, I believe.
Mhm.
Mind you, 3 years of me being in the business. um Oprah Winfrey released her idea. Well, not even idea. She released it. She was going to do a reimagination of The Color Purple, and she released her cast. And I remember sharing the post and saying, "I want in on this Black excellence.
Come on, come
Hashtag
on.
God do it for me." And like that was January of that year. And after I posted it, like, I started texting around, seeing who was on the show, seeing if there is any colleagues, that was
Doing your
on the
part.
show. Doing my part, right? And figuring out like, who was the supervisor, who was the designer, reaching out to the supervisor. And let's just say I reached out to the supervisor, and by the time I reached out, they had another supervisor. So like that supervisor wasn't even working on there anymore. But make a long story short, I went back to my contact and said, is there anybody else that I can contact? They gave me the key costumers information. And the key costumer, typically in the costume department, they are like the head of all of the costumers who
Mhm.
like works on set, like with principal actors, dancers, stunts, or even I've already said background stunts and principal. Okay, copy. So this guy, he wasn't able to really like do anything at that moment because they were already fully booked. So what he did was he saved my number as RC.
Mhm.
And mind you, it took 3 months later for this guy to accidentally text my phone thinking that I was someone else
Uh-huh.
that was already working on the show, asking them, Where are you? We're looking for you.
Stop.
Where
Stop.
are you?
We're
We
looking for
are
you.
looking for
Whew.
you." I
Okay.
said, "What do you mean? This is Rashad Corey." He said, "Oh my God, so sorry. I was trying to get in
But that word
contact
had
with
already
someone
been put
else."
out there.
The
That word
word
had
had
already
already been
been
put
put.
out there. So this is where the word has been put out there. I come back, I do my part, and I say, "Well, I'm available. Do you guys need any help?" He was like, "Well, do you know Period?" I was honest. I said, "Oh, I'm good in the 1920s. I know the 1940s. Any other period, I'm a fast learner. I'm very visual, blah, 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 blah." He was like, "Well, my wife is the costume designer, and I'm going to send over your contact to my wife and to the supervisor." Within 2 hours, the supervisor that I was reaching out to, there was a thread of
Hmm.
me, "Hey, I'm available. Hey, I'm available." No answer. Months of
Wow.
no answer. She then initiated the text. and said,
Wow.
"Hey, I heard that you're available. Can we do an interview?" Got the interview within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, I got the job. They brought me in as a background costumer slash fitter,
Mhm,
where a fitter is pretty much where you do fittings for like the background. You know,
mhm,
background, they'll come in for the juke joint or whatever scene it is,
mhm.
and we'll fit them. We'll design, we'll style them, we'll send pictures over to the designer. What I did not know is they had hired me as a costume with the intent just to watch me.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that one day of me working as a fitter, they watched how I worked, and they
Mhm.
watched my eye. And at the end of that day, they told me, "Don't go to set. Come to the office. The designer wants to interview you." So I'm like, "Well, what do you want to interview me for? I already signed my deal. I already got my rate. I'm already working." Like, and here's the thing, my small mindedness in this moment.
Come on, come on,
Because
come on.
because here's the
Teach
thing, you can be so
somebody.
big minded, but
Because I just started. How did I start this thing off? I said you big.
you big, right, right. Big minded, but see, here's the thing. A lot of things, like industry wise, can come and try to bring it back
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what it was. It was because I never did anything more than costuming or shopping. I didn't feel as though that, like, what would they be interviewing me for on this magnitude of a project? I haven't done anything higher, so I'm not eligible for it. I've only been in the industry at that point for about 2.5 years, and what's said is like, oh, you have to earn your stripes, or you have to, wait a while until you get, blah, 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 blah. So I didn't know what I was going into. But needless to say, she came in and she asked me to help her man the fitting for Lou Gossett Jr. Rest
Wow.
in peace, Mr. Gossett.
Wow.
He was great old mister. And my designer asked me to go into the shop and pull 1930 suits, pull 1920 suits, and she wanted to see my eye. And I came back and I had suits, shirts, ties, jackets, blazers, I mean, hats, Oxfords, two-tones, solids, like all the things to build outfits and how we can intertwine them. She was so impressed. She said, "Please help me man this fitting." I manned the fitting. That was my interview.
Wow. And here
At
you
the
are.
end of at the end of the interview, she came back to me. Watch this. This is the full circle moment. She then came back to me and said, "Have you ever thought about being a designer?
My God.
Do you know that right there, that reached the 6-year-old Rashad.
Yes. Ooh. Ooh. Mm. Yeah.
The 6-year-old Rashad that always wanted to design. The
Mm,
6-year-old Rashad that was told you're not good enough. And because you don't have good grades, you will become homeless and you
mm-mm,
won't get a good job. You won't add up to this, that, and the third because you're not on grade level. You're not on reading level. So what it did was did I ever think about being a designer?
mm.
This was my life and
That's all I ever
childhood
wanted to be.
dream. That's
Yes.
all and just by a manifestation and an affirmation, only thing I said was I want in on this Black excellence. All I wanted to do is to be a costumer on the show. I was good with that. But this is where exceedingly and abundantly above all that I could ever ask or think
Come
or
on.
even imagine comes into play.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
God says, you want this here, which is great, but I'm here to give you exceedingly and abundantly. I'm here to wow your imagination. Where there were costumers that have been in the industry for 10, 15, 20 years working on set, proving themselves. There was a favor of God that was over my life, that because of manifestation and there was prophecy that had to be fulfilled. And because God saw that I would be on this radio show, and he was like, you're going to share this story, and there's going to be somebody that's listening. So I
Absolutely.
have to do it for you. If I do it for Susie, if I do it for Bob,
You got to
will
do it
they
for you.
will they tell of my goodness?
Come on, because he said, listen, I'm only going to use vessels that's going to bring me the glory.
Can
So
God
all that
trust
you
you
went
with
through.
your story?
Kenny,
Can
oh,
God trust you with your story? If God sends you through the fire, pulls you out as pure gold and then sends you
Mm.
back into the same fire that he took you out of, will you speak well of him?
Oh, come on, because that's what he want to know. That's what he want to know. And before I give my final thoughts, I'm going to ask you where Rashad will be in 5 years. So you're about to give yourself another self-fulfilling prophecy that you're going to go ahead and bring into fruition. So we want to know where Rashad is going to be in the next 5 years.
5 years. In the next 5 years, Rashad is gonna boom. Hopefully, I won't even be living in the United States. But however
Oh,
comes, I wanna live like, yeah, I ain't gonna say where I wanna live.
okay.
But my vision for myself is I want to continue down my costume designing journey, but I also want to do some producing.
Okay.
I want to do some writing. There's some stories that I really want to tell, some healing stories that I want to do as far as a director and as a producer of my own personal story, and then also of so many other stories that are need to be told in the cinema form,
Well, you
in
know what?
motion picture.
You don't even know what you just said. Stick close, baby, because I'm writing and because I'm going to need my director. And I told you,
I'm shouting right now. I'm
I'm
sorry.
always bringing Baltimore with me. I literally just met with 3 women yesterday about doing a play and also about 2 other stories that I've already written that I'm gonna need my big
Wow.
Rashad
Wow.
to come in.
Amen. And
So
I'm here
you
to
don't
be
even
of
know what you
service.
spoke. You don't even know
Wow.
what you
Well,
spoke.
well, well, actually, you said you're about to prophesy your next 5 years. And you
Yes.
see, so for our listeners,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you see how you can just speak something in the next moment. It's like
You're all
it
right.
doesn't have to be long. Amos 9 and 13 says it won't be long now.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Things are going to happen so fast that your head is going to swim. God's decree. From
Absolutely.
the mountains and the hills, things are going to happen so fast. You'll drink great wine. You'll go into vineyards, and you'll and what it says is the ruined cities that you once lived in will
Come on.
now all come together,
Yeah.
and God will give you pretty much double for your trouble.
Yes, he will. I know he will. And we're on that journey now because it's right here. It's right here
Amen.
now. Final
Amen.
thoughts, y'all. Listen, y'all got a mouthful. Y'all got a mouthful, a handful, a headful, and a spirit full on
Amen.
this here day. I told you it was going to be special, y'all. And again, tuning in here at 3 p.m. on Sundays. Y'all never know what you're going to get, but you're always going to get out the box. That's what you're going to do. You're going to be unboxed. Final thoughts. You start off with a story that you feel like it has no absolute meaning or power behind it, you look almost defeated. You go into some life situations and things happen and you even question God. Why? Why me? Why did that happen to me? Why did this have to be? But when you just stay put and you trust and know that you are here on purpose for a purpose. You keep living that thing out until that purpose actually manifests itself. Don't
Mm,
despise small beginnings. Don't give up in the winter. Don't die in the winter. Do you know that when it's spring, the weather has 4 seasons? We have 4 seasons.
mhm,
Don't die in the winter where everything seems like it's dry and done and cold, because the spring comes right after that, where all the flowers, all of the fields and lilies are then blooming. Don't die or get stuck where you are. Do you understand what I'm saying? And as we give you the word, I was speaking about this, talking about the prophet Hezekiah in the book of Kings. He reminded God of his word. God will always stand true to his word. Whatever word you receive, and we talked about this earlier, that word may not come from a preacher or a pastor, or it can come from a television show, a billboard, a license plate. When you receive that word, that unction, a word is an unction sometimes. It's not always written or verbal, it's an unction. When you receive that word and that thing in you jumps, that impartation in you jumps, that you got to do it, you hold fast to it and you remind God, I'm here for your purpose. And when you do your part in the purpose, right? Everything that is supposed to be will. We just heard from Mr. Big Rashad Corey. And that, if nothing else, all that he said has been a testimony. And you know what? You better say that.
You have been listening to Being Unboxed on the D.O.D. Radio Network. Best self, best life, best radio.